The letter arrived on a Tuesday in March, crisp ivory envelope, gold embossed seal, the kind of stationery that screams money and entitlement. Inside was a single page, a notice of boundary resolution and quitclaim acceptance. In plain English, it meant the Lakeview Preserve Homeowners Association had just redrawn the property lines of my dead grandfather's 40-acre parcel and handed 12 prime lakefront acres, including the exact spot where he used to park his 52 Chevy pickup, to its president, so Duke Evelyn Goddamn Whitmore. I read it 3 times on the tailgate of my own truck, coffee going cold in my hand. Then I laughed because the alternative was putting my fist through something expensive. My name is Cole Brennan, 46 years old, 3rd generation owner of what used to be the biggest private waterfront left on Lake Arden before the developers smelled blood in the water. My grandfather bought the original 200 acres in 1958 for $23,000 cash, money he made running moonshine during Prohibition and logging afterward. When he died in 2009, he left it all to me with one line in his will: "Don't sell an inch to those suit-wearing son-savages from the city." I kept that promise for 15 years, until Evelyn decided promises were for poor people. She didn't ask, she didn't negotiate, she just built. I found out the same week the letter came because my buddy Ray flew his drone over the ridge to check on my north fence line and nearly crashed it into a 3-story mansion that hadn't existed 6 months earlier. White marble infinity pool hanging over the water, 6-car garage, the whole obscene thing. And right in the middle of the foundation, buried under Italian tile, was the brass survey marker my grandfather pounded in himself in 1962. They stole my land and paved over my childhood with it. I drove straight to the county courthouse and pulled every plat map since 1950. The original deed was ironclad, the new a corrected survey, signed by a firm owned by Evelyn's brother-in-law, approved by a zoning board where Evelyn's husband sat as chairman. Funded by anonymous wave reserve funds that somehow totaled exactly $1.08 million. They thought I'd roll over. Most people do when the paperwork looks official enough. They forgot who they were dealing with. I hired the meanest land use attorney in the state, a woman named Marisol Vega who'd made grown men cry in depositions. She took one look at the file, smiled like a shark smelling blood, and said, "We're not asking for the land back, Cole. We're making her tear that monstrosity down brick by brick, and she's going to pay for the privilege." The lawsuit hit the docket in April. Quiet title trespass, slander of title fraud, RICO for the spicy stuff. We asked for triple damages and a court order of demolition. The judge, an old school type who still believed deeds meant something, fast-tracked it when he saw the forged survey. Evelyn fought like a cornered animal. She cried on local news, called me a bullying outsider. I'd lived here my whole life, claimed the land had been addonated by my grandfather in a document nobody could produce. She hired 3 law firms, spent another $1 million of HOA money, held emergency board meetings in secret. Didn't matter. So, on September 9th, the judge's ruling came down. Full title restored to me, $4, $1 million in damages, and the part Evelyn still has nightmares about paragraph 47. The structure erected at 1427 North Lake Ridgeway shall be demolished in its entirety within 72 hours of this order under direct supervision of the court at defendant's sole expense, with daily progress reports filed until the slab is bare. She had 3 days to erase her dream house. I was there at 6:00 a.m. on day 1. The demolition crew rolled in like an invading army, 5 excavators, 2 wrecking balls, a fleet of dump trucks. Evelyn was already on site in a white pantsuit and pearls, screaming at the foreman that there'd been a mistake. The sheriff's deputy handed her the court order. She read it, face going the color of spoiled milk, and for one beautiful second I thought she might actually faint. She didn't. She called her lawyer. He told her appeals take months and the judge had already denied a stay. Then she did something I'll never forget as long as I live. She looked straight at me across the police tape, tears cutting mascara rivers down her cheeks, and said, "You'll burn in hell for this, Cole Brennan." I smiled, tipped my hat, and said, "Mom, I was raised Baptist. Pretty sure hell's got a lakefront view just like this one." The first wrecking ball hit the east wing at 7:03 a.m. Marble dust exploded into the morning air like snow. The infinity pool cracked and drained in a roaring waterfall straight into the lake. By noon, the third floor was gone. By nightfall, the place looked like Berlin in 1945. Evelyn stayed the whole first day, watched every swing, never moved from her folding chair. That was only day one. Day two was when it got personal. The crew found things as they peeled back the layers. My grandfather's original boundary stone encased in the wine cellar wall like a trophy. A bronze plaque Evelyn had mounted that read Whitmore Estate Established 2024, bolted to what used to be my dear stand tree. And worst of all, in the master bedroom closet, a framed photo of Evelyn and her husband posing on my grandfather's old dock, the day they broke ground, smiling like they'd won the lottery. I took that photo myself. Walked right past the deputy, pulled it off the wall while the house was literally collapsing around me, and slipped it into my jacket. Evidence, sure, but mostly I just wanted her to know I'd been inside her palace while it died. The news choppers showed up by noon. Local stations, then national, sugary, even national. Someone leaked the court footage of Evelyn crying during her deposition when Marisol made her read my grandfather's will out loud. By evening, Joy Caron was trending nationwide. Day 3. The final day dawned cold and clear, gone cold and clear. Only the frame and the slab remained, a skeleton of rebar and broken dreams. The crew chief told me they'd never seen anything tear down so fast. The house was so over, leveraged with debt that every subcontractor wanted their equipment offsite before the bank seized it. Evelyn came back at sunrise. Different outfit this time, jeans and a hoodie. No makeup, hair in a messy bun. She looked 10 years older than the woman who'd threatened me 48 hours earlier. She walked straight up to where I was leaning against my truck drinking coffee and said, "Is this what you wanted?" I didn't answer right away. Just looked at the hole in the ground where her palace used to be. "No," I finally said. "What I wanted was for you to ask. One conversation, one fair offer. You could have had the land for twice what it's worth and I'd have slept fine. But you thought you were smarter than a dead man's deed and 3 generations of Brennans. This," I gestured at the rubble. "This is what happens when entitlement meets reality." She started crying again, but quieter this time. Real tears. "I'm ruined," she whispered. The association's bankrupt. My husband left. They're talking criminal charges." I felt something then. Not pity, exactly. Something close to it. "Evelyn," I said, using her first name for the first and last time. "You built your house on sand that wasn't yours. The tide always comes back." The final slab cracked at 4:47 p.m. The crew poured diesel on the remaining wood, lit it for safety, and the last piece of Whitmore estate went up in smoke against the red Carolina sunset. I stood there until the fire burned itself out. Until the only thing left was bare earth and the sound of water lapping against my grandfather's shoreline again. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. They're wrong. Sometimes it's served with a wrecking ball and 3-court order days, while the whole world watches a tyrant lose everything she stole. I still have that framed photo. It sits on my mantle next to my grandfather's will and the original 1958 deed. Arcade. Some nights when the wind comes down off the ridge just right, I swear I can hear marble cracking and a woman crying, and I sleep like a baby. Because the land is mine again, every acre, every stone, every memory. And no queen, no president, no forged survey on earth will ever take it from a Brennan again.